Welcome to Mindfulness Manufacturing. My name is Trevor Blondeel. Spending 25 years in manufacturing, I discovered the real impact we have on turnover, communication, and the ability to manage change is how we show up. That's the essence of emotional intelligence. In each episode, we bring a guest or message to expand your skills, engage your people, and grow your organization. So let's jump in. In manufacturing, the pressure, stress, expectations we put on ourselves and others, all this can take a real toll. And we've talked on this show often about what's the real problem here, disconnection. The solution is connection. And what I often talk about is how we get there is curiosity about each other. We know that relationships are the foundation. However, if we can just shift our perspective, there's another way we can do that and build connection. And that's with humor. My friend Tim Gard has been speaking to over 20 countries on this topic. He has humor-based training. He's a pioneer in this space, and I'm just excited to learn from you today, Tim. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Very, very glad to be here, Trevor. It's been looking forward to it for a while.
And you, Tim, you're a Hall of Fame speaker. And I guess first thing is, I've never thought about this in manufacturing, but you're a humorist, not necessarily a comedian. What's the difference between those two?
Well, a comedian, their goal is to get the audience to laugh at any cost. They're more at the joke is at someone's expense. Whereas with humorists, we try to laugh with, we use it to enhance. We never diminish anybody. Comedians, it's usually, like I say, at someone's expense, putting someone down. Someone's the butt of the joke. And, the thing is, what you pay to go see them, you know what you're getting into at the time. Whereas most humorists, we're work around people's work schedules. When they're at a work conference, it's the same as they're at work, and the same rules apply. So it's got to be very squeaky clean. Whereas with most comedians, that's not the case, although there are a few different ones that are pretty clean, but that's really the main difference.
In manufacturing, and I've seen the humor at the expense of others, which fuels the disconnection. Right. And I think sometimes it's nervousness, sometimes it's lack of self-confidence. But when you see it done well, what does that look like when you're using humor well in a workplace?
So, when you're using it well, it's used really to, that we can look at a shared problem and laugh at it. We can look at our inadequacies and laugh at them. C.W. Metcalf said, laugh not with ridicule, but with objectivity and acceptance of self, that we're all going to make mistakes, that's how we deal with them. But it's looking at it, if you use it only in a positive way to enhance, then I think it's most effective.
Yeah, because we have enough negatives that we can turn into positives in manufacturing. So we're always looking on ways to do that.
And you're right about that. I mean, there's so much out there where a lot of times people will even compare themselves to somebody else by putting down that other manufactured product instead of talking about their own enhancements in a comparative nature.
I like that. Yeah. Yeah. There's so much we can just, if I believe if our self-confidence is strong enough, we can make a lot of humor just at ourselves. Right. And it's a safe space. Is that what you see a lot, Tim?
Yeah, self-effacing humor is really important. Some of the places I've seen people resistive, I trained in Singapore with that, and that's a lot of folks there are not really into self-effacing humor. What I said to them was, you may not agree with it, but you have to understand it if you're going to do business with Americans, Canadians, Australians, because they do that. They are able to laugh at themselves. It's funny. Having a sense of humor is understanding why something's funny. Being humorous is when you can make things funny. And I think more than anything, we should concentrate on just understanding the humor or having a sense of humor.
Understanding and just having. Yeah. Like I think that's really what I wanted to get out of this podcast today is just that reminder, because we don't get a lot of reminder of the humor. And, we spend in manufacturing so many hours together. Sometimes it's the same teams on the same shift, building the same product. But it's never the same day. It's not the same old. And it's like,
well, I think more people, they spend more time with people in their jobs manufacturing than they do with their families talking, with people directly. They spend more time with people they didn't choose to associate with. And I think, it can be stressful, and humor is a really good way to help relieve the stress. Again, not making fun of people, but literally finding a way to laugh at the stressful parts of the job.
And you have a way of just taking a regular situation and then turning that into humor. So what's some examples like for our listeners? Like how do we get in that mindset?
Yeah, the reverse thinking. With reverse thinking, if you're in a hurry to get somewhere, you're gonna, you're late running to work. It's guaranteed you're gonna hit every red light along the way. And recently had this happen. I was on my way to the airport. We hit 7 red lights in a row, and I told the Uber driver that 8 is my record. That when I've really been in a hurry, I've only run into 8 in a row at one time, and there's a potential of up to 21 before I get to the airport. He said, well, that's important. And I said, well, instead of getting angry about it, that's my personal best right now. And actually at the time, I think it was 7. And just before we got to the airport, it would have been 8. The light is green, and he slows down so that I could get 8 in a row. And then we both cheered. It doesn't do any good to get mad about it. In fact, that's when we lose. It's more or less finding a way to let that anger go and move that into some other realm of thinking.
And I think it's some of that balance of, I've seen people get upset because, this person's not taking the situation serious enough. And that person's probably just is stressed out and just trying to lighten up the mood with a little bit of humor. So it's, you talk about building that connection. And it's kind of making that connection between the person that's maybe has a nervous humor and the other person that's just not open to that humor at all, and just trying to figure out how to bridge that gap.
Well, I think there are those that want to play, those that don't want to play, and those that don't know how. And I don't think we ever, force it on people. I worked with a guy when I was with the government years ago. I never saw him laugh. I don't know what he found funny until like the last day I was there. I was watching 2 of the custodians cleaning up some mess, and they both bent over at the same time to pick up a bucket and hit their heads together, and he burst out laughing. That was the funniest thing he'd ever seen. Well, it was good for me to see what he found funny finally, but it's just unfortunate it was at somebody else's expense. So, I just think a lot of times we overthink things, that we should assume the best about people instead of the worst, and that, we give people an opportunity to explain, why they're angry or why they're upset or whatever's going on. But, in the process, when they're working, it's hard. You have very few times when you can really have a conversation with somebody. It's usually little short bits here and there.
Yeah. So use those short bits to, hey, whether it's a quality issue that we're dealing with or behind on production, we run into those situations, but it's like, yes. And like, yes, we need to make that, make that number, but, we can still laugh a little bit along the way.
Yeah. I used to work in a camper assembly in Montana. We put together trapper campers, and I worked on the assembly line, putting the cabinets together because I could read a 3D chart. And they had 2 different hose guns. One of them had a 1/2-inch staple, and the other one had an 1.5-inch staple. 1.5 was to staple the cabinets to the frame. The other ones were for the facing. And I found one was shorter than the other. And I didn't know that it was shorter because they don't want you to grab onto the 1.5-inch staples and use them in an incorrect area, or you'll staple your finger. And so I immediately replaced both of them with the longer hose because I thought it'd be better. And within probably an hour, I'd stapled my hand to the cabinet. And the assembly line moves really slow, but it's moving. And I didn't know what to do, and stapled all the way through my hand. And foreman walks by and sticks a screwdriver in there and pops my hand off. And he goes, Tim, stapling your hand's not stupid. Not telling anybody, that's stupid. He says, when you hurt yourself, tell somebody, we'll get it taken care of. It's not about being embarrassed. And, and I look back on it now, how stupid that was. I didn't want to be embarrassed or tell anybody. And I don't know where I thought I was going to go, that they'd end up building a camper around me with my stapled hand in there or something. But people make mistakes. They're the byproducts of limited human awareness. And we just don't want to beat people up about them. We just want to learn to not have that happen again.
Yeah. And we know that when our brains are under stress and we got all that cortisol pumping, we become that fight or flight. I think that's really, for us to continue to grow manufacturing in the US and Canada and the whole job retention, is continuing to build that connection, right? Like, can I go into a workplace that, that's going to have structure and it's going to have results.
Mm-hmm.
But then we can also feel connected and feel good doing it and be able to laugh a little bit. Like, I think back some of my manufacturing days and the people around me where we could work hard and laugh hard. I mean, that's when we got the results.
Yeah, but part of it is too with your younger people that are coming in. A lot of them want to know why. It's like we do this, and this is your part, and you do that, and that's your part. Sometimes now I'm getting to the point where if we take a little bit of time to let people know why we do what we do, they maybe have a more of a buy-in that younger or older people may not have. We have to adapt to the communication methods. If we're not connecting with people, it's usually because we're not adapting to their style, because most people don't want to adapt. Everything from direct and indirect communication to just somebody who, I don't know if I want to do this job because I don't know if it really means anything.
Yeah.
Things have changed.
Yeah. So why not talk about it? Right.
Yeah.
You can't fix what you're not willing to expose. And so like what you're saying is it's kind of like reading that other person to see, where's their humor at?
Yeah. And where does everybody fit into the process, and why are they all important? And, it's up to the supervisors and managers to come up to people and say, do you know what I like about you? We'll have something to say when it happens, but it's giving people positive feedback. It's smiling at them. What we want to do is people, I used to tell people for years to put a mirror on their desk when everything was with a phone, that it makes a difference when you're smiling on the phone. People can read that. And we don't understand that we can be saying something, and if we're not smiling, it could be interpreted in a whole different way. It's a level of awareness.
Yeah, but yeah, even if you're talking about a problem, or just because we're usually working on something, right? There's usually something that we're working on, we want to get to. But if we can start with that, just the power of the smile itself, let alone being a humorist, because I used to get, I don't really have good one-liners, and I don't have a lot of jokes. But in general, I laugh a lot with people.
Well, storytelling to me is really the root of a lot of the use of humor in the workplace. The jokes almost rely on putting somebody down, almost always. And then how they're told. You have your punchline, and you have your setup line, your punchline, and your punch word is the last word. There's a structure to it. But people that don't know how to tell jokes shouldn't. They should do something more visual rather than auditory like that. But the bottom line with all of it is, when we connect, if we don't connect, is to try other ways, not just abandon the process of trying to connect with somebody. And you don't want to ever put somebody in a circumstance where they may not speak English well enough to use humor at this point. It may be a second language or third or fourth language, actually.
So here's one for the listeners that I learned from you. You were at an awards banquet for the National Speakers Association, and you didn't say hardly anything up there, and you had us rolling in our chairs just by your facial expressions. Talk a little bit about how we can do that, right? Because I was like, damn, he's not even saying anything. I can't stop smiling. So maybe that's another way for some of us to have humor.
Yeah. So when we're around somebody laughing, we're drawn to that. We seek laughter. And in that instance, it was Hall of Fame nomination or Hall of Fame speech for another person. And my only instructions had been have fun with the other person is reading and have some reaction on your face to what they're saying. And so that's what I did. And it's got to be over exaggerated a little bit. And so I think that, that's a little bit harder to learn to do. But I'll tell you, I mean, I've been doing it a long time. I've learned how to read people fairly well. And I think in those instances, people do assume the best, that I wasn't making fun of anybody other than myself in that. But you're right. I don't think I said more than a dozen words, but the guy who was reading it said, you got the best laughs, Tim, and you didn't have anything to say. So here's the thing, our faces are the mirror to the world of our faces. And even if we don't know what's going on, if we're smiling, we'll connect with people. And I think that so many people don't realize. I mean, I had a guy sit in my audience one day, sat in the front row. Everybody around him is laughing. And at the end, he came up, he's about 6'5", looked down at me, and I thought he was going to hit me. And he said, I've never laughed so hard in my life. And, I wanted to say, tell your face, because we don't telegraph those emotions. A lot of people are afraid to do that. And so I studied a lot of that. It's funny you should notice that, Trevor. I studied a lot over COVID about how radio was done, that a lot of times they would have to get into a certain mood, and that they could tell that if they were if they got laughing before they did a gig on the radio, it came through with whatever they were doing. And so a lot of it is my own state of mind before I go on stage or as I'm interacting like that. Yeah.
Your own state of mind before you go in. So I'm thinking like when we kick off a team in the morning, right? People are coming in, they're drinking, some of them are drinking coffee, some of them are drinking Mountain Dews, and it's just trying to get that life going, right? So if your leader can, just get in a good mood yourself and realize that, man, if I can just be mindful, which is the name of this podcast, Mindfulness Manufacturing, of like, hey, I am generally happy, and I want to convey that. And I know that if I got 10 people that are, waiting to start their day, and I can connect with them, even if I'm smiling and it's not really funny, people still start to smile.
They'll smile. And the whole thing is to make sure that you just don't use that time to tell people what they're doing wrong, which is what a lot of people do. It's tell them what you're doing right. And I can't remember who it was in Denver there's a Denver National Speakers Chapter that used to say, tell people what you like about them. I really like it when you come in here, to one of the employees. I really like when you come in here, you are ready to go. You've got your game face on, everything's set. I think things like that go a really long way. And noticing those, especially as a leader.
Yeah, if you can turn that into some humor. So if one of the team members on your team is, normally always drinking coffee in the morning, then you can say, hey, I see Tim has got his fuel for the day, and he looks like he's ready to rock, right? Like, I appreciate that about you, Tim. Just saying that at the meeting. Yep. But like, and I like what you said, right? As long as it's always in the spirit and the people feel that it is positive.
It's a very real thing. It's, every time when you come in here, you are ready to go to work. You've got your gloves on, you're ready, everything's set to go. I really admire that I've never had to say to you, don't forget to put your gloves on, or that, some safety thing like that. We want to recognize the little things that people do. And then other people see that, and you don't have to tell them, hey, stupid, put your gloves on, which is, I've seen people do in manufacturing. Yeah. I got asked one time at a group that they were having trouble. Somebody had lost a finger. They weren't wearing their safety gloves, and the gloves had some sort of metal inside of them that helped protect their hands. And they said, we need a slogan, Tim. And I said, how about having 5 fingers is fun? It's that if you're gonna use things like that, they're gonna listen more than if you say only stupid people don't wear gloves.
Yeah.
It's just going to be responded to in a better fashion.
Yeah. I like having 5 fingers. It is fun to use them all.
Having 5 fingers is fun. That's right. So,
because you use this as like a business skill, you even use this in safety as well, Tim.
Yeah. I teach a safety class called Sticky Safety. I'd been on so many, when I was working, I had been to so many boring safety meetings. I had just had enough. And I was at one of the meetings one time, and I had to get out of there. I was going to fall asleep, and I had nothing. I didn't know how I was going to get out before cell phones were invented. I just seen that movie MacGyver where he could make something out of anything, and took my pen out and looked at it and looked at it. I go, is that my pen? And then threw it out the door. Is that my pen out there? And so I go running out and grab my pen and just keep going. And I'm standing out there wondering if I'm going to get fired. And a few seconds later, another pen goes shooting out the door. It's my boss. And he picks it up and he goes, we won't speak about this again. And so now if I'm in a boring meeting, I just have to think, is that my pen? And it brings me back. It brings me back to life. So whatever it takes.
And you've worked with different people on this, but I've heard you say, laughter will become you.
Laughter becomes you. That the more we use laughter, the more it becomes a part of our everyday life. That you look for the humor. Going to New York last week, they told us our flight was delayed, and this guy cuts in front of me, and he says, "I don't care if that plane's broken. I have to go to New York. I don't care if the plane is broken." And he walks off. And I said to the clerk after he left, I said, "I have a different opinion. If the plane's broken, I'm not getting on. And quite frankly, you can't make me." And it made him laugh. And so, it's this looking at things or trying to share the humor, it kind of becomes a way of life, the way it has for me.
looking for it, right? And I think
Mhm.
that's the difference is we get inside what I call the four walls.
Uh-huh.
And it's just like we're in that building, we're in the mode. You want to fit in and you start to learn behaviors from each other and it's really a lot of task oriented. But when you do find a group that is using humor and people are laughing more, it's kind of like, well, I want to work with those people a little bit more. Because it seems like they're getting the work done and they're having a better time. And usually, if the energy is put in the right way, you're getting better results.
Well, and you're right about the fact that it's inclusive. Most people want to be included in those groups, or you're sitting by yourself in the lunchroom or whatever's happening. That we can work to become more inclusive with other people, and get that person to go join other groups. A lot of it is understanding that all that time you are at work, the times when you're not working, when you're on a break, when you're at lunch, whatever it is, that time could be spent talking with other people, getting to know them. Sometimes we just want to take a break, but I
Mhm.
watch people get on their phone and start looking at all the horrible things that happen in the day while they're at work. It's like, no, try to find something funny. I love to watch the old Carol Burnett reruns with Harvey Korman
Mm.
and Tim. They try to crack each other up watching this. I mean, I love watching those, and I'll get on the plane and be a little tired, and I'll watch those myself. And pretty soon the person next to me wants to know where I found that out because they see me laughing and they want to share it. So
It's a good point. Like when you look over and you see someone laughing, you think like, what are they laughing about?
yeah.
And when you see someone that's angry, you usually are not as curious. You're more like, oh,
No.
I don't want to know.
On the way back from New York this last week, I spoke at a safety conference, Expo 88 there, or Expo 811, and I was editing one of my videos, and I'm going through this, and I don't know what had happened, but something was funny, and I was laughing, and the guy next to me looks over and sees me watching myself on screen and laughing, and he said something like, "That's really narcissistic," and I said, well, yeah, but then I turned on the sound and let him hear a little bit of it, but I didn't realize how crazy that looks as me watching myself, making myself laugh. As strange as that way it may be.
It is. It's strange. It's strange ways, right? Like it's like, but that's when we know we're connecting, right? When we can laugh at ourselves,
Yeah.
and I think, oh, you know what, this is pretty funny, and then you kind of find what lands. And if you can get, again, it's all mindset and mindfulness. If you can shift your mind to,
Yeah.
a memory that's positive and you can connect that to a moment, if you can connect your teams to that.
Well, it's the mirror neurons in the brain that connect us to, like, you can smell cookies and be in your mother's kitchen. You can hear a song and be back at your prom in high school. The
Oh,
mirror neurons
absolutely.
in your brain connect us to those thoughts and feelings, and it's incredibly powerful. So we can harness that to deal with the difficult times that we run into, or the really stressful times.
Because when we're not in that good space, it's easy, like you said, looking around and to get into a little bit that sadder state, right? That more depression state. And you talk about the opposite of depression.
Yeah, a lot of it is, it's putting yourself in a mindset that you start looking at things differently. At this hotel, I was at a Marriott hotel last week. When I checked in, the lady said, "How many keys do you want?" And I said, "I just want one." I said, "But my personal best in losing the key is a minute and a half." I said, "I've lost a key within a minute and a half of the front desk. That's my personal best." And she laughed and she goes, "Do you want two keys then?" And I said, "No, I'd lose both of them." I said, "Just realize I'll probably be back at some time or another." And we both laughed about it, but that laughter helped me give a greater deal of attention to the keys to not lose them. I mean, it works on a lot of different levels rather than
Uh,
beating yourself up over little things like that.
this has been great, and just put some other perspective on Tim's unique abilities here. You manufacture some of your own products
I
around
do.
relieving stress,
I
and
do. I
and
have
rubber chickens are usually involved.
yeah, the little itty bitty chickens. I actually get those from a company through Alibaba. They're just little tiny. They're about inch long, hard chicken. It looks like a miniature dead rubber chicken. And it's hard on the radio. I understand it's hard to see it in your mind, but it's yellow. It's got the red comb and the red beak, and they're just funny. I don't know why they're so funny, but they are. And I have a large plush crab. It's called a cubicle crab that people can put in their office when other folks are being crabby. They can, or being a little crabby. And I design from design all the way through manufacturing to sales now. I've now got all those back now. They're on my website for sale. They're just things that help us remind us to act and not react to situational stress out there.
I love it. I mean, because the point is, Tim, is that we need reminders. Like we need something, we need cues if we're not normally in a laughing state all the time. And it doesn't even be all the time, but we need some type of cues. And I think that's what I'm taking away from this, even for myself, is just a reminder of, when I've got a lot going on, it's like, what's my cue? That like, where's the humor in this? Like, I get to do this. So, we get to work.
It's a choice. We have a choice about how we can't change the things that happen to us. We have to change our perception of those and about how they let it bother us. I can't change it. I can change how it affects me.
Yeah. It's, and I saw that you had that too, like the pause, reset, and shift, right? Sometimes it just takes that pause. And then,
if you stop, and even if you do it in your mind or something happens, take a step back and think about it before you say anything. In the safety talk, I have pennies that I give to everybody, and I tell them, ask Mr. Lincoln what to do. It's like a lot of times with safety violations, somebody's decided to reach in and grab something out of that press just one time, and they did it and lost their hand. It's really taking him. Are you willing to invest a penny to live? And when you stop and touch that penny, you break that process, and you're not just going to do something stupid. That hopefully you'll learn to act and not react.
I love it. Well, Tim, tell me a little bit about Comic Vision. And this is kind of your work, and share that with our listeners here. And what do you want to leave our listeners with?
The website is just Tim Gard, TIMGARD.com, all one word. The other one is Sticky Safety, all one word.com. There's videos on there. There's information about my seminars. I do consulting. I also work with people to build humor in their sales presentations and things like that. But there's a lot of great stuff there. And I hope your listeners will visit there and check it all out.
Right on. I know I will. And Tim, every time I see you, I can't help but smile. You make me smile. You make the space just a happier place, and you remind us of what, we can have some fun and we can work hard too.
Thanks, Trevor. I really appreciate that.
Hey folks, appreciate you taking the time to join us today. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone. Haven't subscribed yet? Do it now. Remember, if you want results, the key is increasing your awareness of how you show up.